Imagine cruising at 35,000 feet, gazing out the window, when a thought strikes: why don't we have parachutes on planes? It seems logical. Life vests for water, so why not parachutes for emergencies over land? The reality is, commercial aviation emergencies don't play out like the movies. The outside environment is hostile, and planes aren't designed for mid-air escapes. Supplying parachutes would create more problems than it solves, logistically, physically, and practically. The absence of parachutes is a deliberate, researched decision rooted in decades of safety engineering. Let's explore why this seemingly simple idea just doesn't work. Parachutes began as military lifesavers, not civilian tools. In the early days of aviation, parachutes were developed out of necessity, designed to give soldiers and pilots a fighting chance when disaster struck high above the battlefield. These early parachutes were heavy, cumbersome, and required significant training to use effectively. In wartime, trained pilots and paratroopers used parachutes to escape doomed aircraft, after rigorous training and with planes designed for bailouts. Every jump was a calculated risk, but for those in uniform, it was a risk they were prepared to take. The military environment was built around discipline, physical fitness, and the expectation that every crew member could handle the intense demands of an emergency jump. Military crews were young, fit, and prepared for the shock and skill required to jump. They drilled for these moments, learning to overcome fear and act quickly under pressure. The ability to leap from a burning plane and survive was a badge of honor, a testament to their training and courage. Commercial aviation is different. Passengers are of all ages and abilities, with no training and no preparation for such a leap. Families, elderly travelers, children, and people with disabilities all share the cabin. The idea of asking every passenger to don a parachute and jump from a stricken airliner is not just impractical, it's unthinkable. Military planes accept losing the aircraft to save the crew. Commercial aviation is about saving everyone by keeping the plane intact. The loss of a military plane is tragic, but the mission is to bring people home alive. In contrast, commercial airlines are designed with the goal of preventing disaster altogether, focusing on the safety of every soul on board. Airliners are built to withstand emergencies, with robust structures and redundant systems. Engineers design these planes to handle engine failures, turbulence, and even lightning strikes. Multiple backup systems, advanced avionics, and strict maintenance routines all work together to keep passengers safe, making the need for parachutes obsolete. The focus is on prevention and safe landings, not individual escapes. Flight attendants train for every possible scenario, from medical emergencies to rapid evacuations, ensuring that passengers have the best chance of survival without ever leaving the aircraft mid-flight. The parachute, a symbol of military survival, simply doesn't fit the collective safety strategy of commercial flight. In the world of airlines, safety is about teamwork, technology, and keeping everyone together, not about individual heroics or last-minute leaps into the unknown. That's why the transition from military to civilian use never happened. As aviation evolved, so did our approach to safety, moving away from parachutes and toward innovations that keep planes flying safely from takeoff to landing. The safest plan is always to keep everyone inside, working together. Modern air travel relies on cooperation, communication, and the expertise of trained professionals to guide passengers through any crisis. Parachutes belong to a different world, a world of military missions and daring escapes, not the shared journey of commercial flight. Today, the legacy of the parachute lives on in museums and history books, a reminder of how far aviation safety has come. At cruising altitude, the outside world is deadly, minus 70 degrees, barely any oxygen. Without special gear, you'd lose consciousness in seconds. Military pilots wear oxygen masks and heated suits for a reason. Now add speed jets fly at 500-600 miles per hour. Exiting at that velocity is like stepping into a hurricane. The wind blast could injure or kill instantly, and deploying a parachute at that speed could be fatal. Airliner doors are plug doors, impossible to open mid-flight due to cabin pressure. Even if depressurized, the force of the wind makes opening a door nearly impossible. And if you did jump, you'd have to clear the wings, tail, and engines, risking collision or worse. The design and environment make high-altitude bailouts pure fantasy. Parachutes just aren't an option at 35,000 feet. Inside the cabin, chaos would reign in an emergency. Airplanes are designed to maximize seating, not to provide space for movement, especially not in a crisis. The aisles are narrow, the seats are tightly packed, and there's barely enough room for everyone to stand, let alone move freely. In a high-stress situation, this lack of space becomes a major hazard. Imagine hundreds of panicked passengers trying to strap on parachutes in cramped aisles. People would be bumping into each other, dropping equipment, and getting tangled up. The confusion would be overwhelming, with everyone desperate to get ready at the same time. Fitting a harness takes time and skill, impossible for untrained, terrified people in a crisis. Most passengers have never even seen a parachute up close, let alone put one on correctly. In the panic, mistakes would be inevitable, and improperly worn harnesses could be deadly. The cabin would become gridlocked, with people struggling, blocking exits, and risking injury. The rush to the doors would create bottlenecks, and people could easily be knocked over or trampled in the chaos. Even if everyone managed to get harnessed, airliners have few exits, not designed for jumping. These doors are small and only a couple of people can fit through at a time. The process would be painfully slow, with a huge crowd pushing from behind. Military paratroopers practice for months. Civilians would hesitate, clogging the process. Paratroopers know exactly what to do, but most passengers would freeze or fumble, unsure of how to jump safely or when to go. Only a handful might get out before disaster struck. The rest would be stuck inside, unable to reach the exits in time, or too afraid to make the leap. Instead of a coordinated evacuation, you'd have a frantic individual struggle for survival. People would push, shove, and act on instinct, making the situation even more dangerous for everyone. Crew authority would collapse, panic would spread, and the chance of saving lives would plummet. The crew, trained for orderly evacuations, would be powerless to control the chaos. Parachutes would turn a manageable emergency into a catastrophe. Instead of helping, they would add confusion, delay, and danger, making survival less likely for everyone on board. The safest plan is always to keep everyone inside, working together. Following the crew's instructions and staying calm gives everyone the best chance of making it through an emergency safely. Beyond the physical impossibility, parachutes on commercial flights are a financial and logistical nightmare that most people never consider. The idea might sound simple, just provide every passenger with a parachute, but the reality is far more complicated and expensive than it appears at first glance. Each parachute costs thousands of dollars, and that's just the beginning. Multiply that by every seat on every plane in a fleet, and the price tag quickly becomes astronomical. Airlines operate on razor-thin margins, so this kind of expense would be unsustainable. Maintenance is a never-ending process. Parachutes require regular expert inspection, careful repacking, and eventual replacement, even if they're never used. This isn't a one-time purchase, it's a recurring cost that would strain any airline's budget. Airlines would need to hire and train entire teams of certified parachute riggers, adding a whole new layer of specialized staff. These experts would be responsible for ensuring every parachute is safe and ready, further driving up operational costs. Parachutes are heavy and bulky, taking up valuable space and adding significant weight to every flight. This means more fuel is needed, which increases emissions and costs, while also reducing the space available for passengers or cargo. The result? Ticket prices would soar, making air travel less accessible for everyone. Airlines could lose revenue as fewer people can afford to fly, and some flights might even operate at a loss. But the biggest issue isn't even the money, it's the training gap. Parachuting is a complex skill that requires practice and confidence. It's not something you can just pick up in an emergency. Passengers would need to know how to properly wear the harness, deploy the chute at the right time, steer themselves in the air, and land safely. These are skills that take weeks, if not months, to master, even under ideal conditions. A quick safety demonstration before takeoff can't possibly prepare anyone for the chaos and fear of a real emergency jump at high altitude and speed. Without proper training, parachutes are more likely to cause panic, confusion, and injury than to save lives. Even experienced skydivers face risks. Imagine the danger for untrained passengers. When you add up the overwhelming costs, the logistical hurdles, and the massive training gap, it's clear, the economic and practical case for parachutes on commercial flights just isn't there. The idea of parachutes ignores the real risk. Flying is already the safest way to travel. The odds of a fatal airline accident are 1 in millions, far lower than driving. Most incidents happen during takeoff or landing, at low altitudes where parachutes are useless. Catastrophic mid-air failures are vanishingly rare. Modern jets are built with redundancies and can often fly safely even after major failures. The industry invests billions in prevention, not escape. Pilots and crews are trained to handle emergencies and land safely. The best safety system is the plane itself, and the people flying it. Real-life emergencies show why parachutes wouldn't help. Take the Gimli glider. A jet ran out of fuel, but the pilots glided it safely to the ground. No one was hurt. Or the miracle on the Hudson. After a bird strike, the crew ditched in the river and everyone survived. In both cases, parachutes would have been useless. No time, no altitude, no training. Jumping would have meant certain tragedy. The safest place was inside the plane, trusting the crew. These stories prove that survival depends on teamwork and training, not individual escape. Parachutes would have made things worse, not better. The real miracle is the skill of the pilots and the design of the aircraft. The biggest barrier to parachutes isn't technical, it's human nature. In a crisis, panic takes over, even for trained professionals. For untrained passengers, fear would turn the cabin into chaos. An announcement to put on parachutes and jump would trigger terror, not calm. People would scramble, block aisles, and trample the vulnerable. Most would freeze at the door, unable to jump, halting any evacuation. Airline safety is built around simple, passive instructions. Stay seated, brace, let the crew lead. Emergency slides and life vests are used after landing, not mid-air. Parachutes would shatter this system, unleashing uncontrollable panic. The safest approach is to trust the crew and the aircraft, not to rely on impossible escapes. In the sky, calm and coordination save lives, not parachutes.